We're continuing on in the book of Genesis, in the story of Joseph, to emphasize what happens in families and at the workplace and other gatherings where someone is excluded or some group is excluded while others are shown favoritism and how it affects each one of us. And we've seen that Joseph got a special coat from his dad, and that made him proud, singled him out. The other children were upset because they knew what was going on already. By the way, Joseph brought bad reports of him, and his father rewarded him. So what do you think? And then there's dreams that he dreamt. And with all this, you would think, wow, he was probably still around 16 years old, and he wouldn't have enough sense to realize what this could do for him in the wrong way. And this aggravates his brothers to the point that they're going to sell him to the Ishmaelites, who are then going to sell him to an Egyptian. But in chapter 38, we have a passage of scripture that looks like it's out of place, but it continues to show how we mistreat others. It comes back on us. And we're going to see this line throughout a lot of the Old Testament in the families. Tamar was supposed to get one of the sons off of Judah. And Judah waits around, and she's still a widow for many years, waiting for that last son to grow up. And she sees that he's grown up, but Judah has still not followed through with his promise. So Judah was out shearing sheep, and for some reason he left his duties to go someplace he shouldn't have. And Tamar, was it Tamar? Yeah, Tamar was told of where he's going. So she dressed up as a prostitute and went there and laid wait. And of course, he didn't know who she was, but she knew him, and she got his staff and maybe his wristband or something, identification. And so they had a little fun time together, and she went back home, put on her mourning clothes, and he went back up into where he was going. And then he went back to his camp. And after some months, it was told that she was pregnant. Oh, that didn't go over too good. She was facing death. And she sent to Judah and said, "By whose possessions are the man that I had sex with?" And of course, it was his staff and his identification. And Judah then remembered, oh, I messed up. And Tamar was to live and to be married, and she ended up okay. But you see, trickery and lies are through here. And now we get on with Joseph has been sold, chapter 39. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer over his house and all that he had put into his hand. And it came to pass from time that he had made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and knew not aught had he, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a godly person and well favored. And it came to pass after these things, that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, Lie with me. But he refused and said unto his master's wife, Behold, my master wotteth not what is in with me in the house, and he had committed all that he had to my hand. There is none greater in this house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? And it came to pass, as she spoke to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her or to be with her. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the other men of the house there within. And she caught him by his garment, saying, Lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. And it came to pass, when she saw that he left his garment to her hand and was fled forth, that she called unto the men of the house and spoke to them, saying, See, he had brought in a Hebrew unto us to mock us, and he came unto me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And it came to pass, when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled and got him out. And she laid up his garment by her until his Lord came home. When she spoke unto him according to these things, saying, The Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us came in unto me to mock me. And it came to pass, as I lifted my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled. And it came to pass, when his master heard these words of his wife, which she spoke unto him, saying, After this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master took him, put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and was there in the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him mercy, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison commanded to Joseph, and all that the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. Wow. So Joseph was brought down to Egypt, to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard. Captain of the guards in Egypt. Very important position, title, responsibility. And if you look, the Ishmaelites brought him down there. Remember, this goes back to Sarah and Abram. If they hadn't made that mistake, and listened to God, the Ishmaelites would not be where they are now. And the Lord was with Joseph. And this is basically the idea of this whole chapter, that the Lord was with Joseph. And he was a prosperous man. And he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hands. Can you look at somebody today and say the same thing? That the Lord is with them? You're talking about an Egyptian that believes in many gods. And he's saying that the Lord is with Joseph because everything that Joseph does goes well. If I saw a guy like that, I think I'd grab my hands on him and keep him. And Joseph found grace in his sight. Grace. Unmerited. Not deserving. That's what grace is. You don't deserve it. And you don't earn it. You don't gain it. But it's given to you by somebody else. He served him, and he made him overseer of his house, and all that he put into his hand. In other words, Joseph was different than most of the people, even the Egyptians. He was educated. He had a gift for organizing, a gift in selling, and all kinds of things. He wasn't just a plain shepherd or something like that. Verse 5, and it came to pass from the time that he made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. Can you imagine this? This guy is being blessed because of Joseph. Because God is taking care of Joseph after the ordeal that he's been through. And he's preparing him to reach a point in time where Joseph is going to be using all of this knowledge, all this training. Verse 6, and he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a godly person and well favored. Godly. It means that you walk right. You don't do anything wrong, but you're godly. You got a quality of God inside of you that is good. There's no corruption, no wrong. I wish that could be said about me, but I know it's not true because I see what goes inside of my mind. I try to be godly, but sometimes I don't. Well favored. That's like a lot of these charismatic preachers out there. They have a personality about them that attracts other people, and they follow them, even when they're doing evil things. But Joseph is doing good things, and that personality of his is attracting other people to like him. And verse 7, it says, it came to pass that after these things, that his master's wife cast eyes upon Joseph, and she said, lie with me. Apparently, she's done this before. When her Potiphar goes into Egypt, she's left lonely, and she has probably seduced other men. Why would she pick up on Joseph? Well, we don't have that answer. But sometimes when we're not looking for something, somebody else is looking, and that's why they get attracted to the other person. Verse 8, but he refused and said unto his master's wife, behold, my master wotteth not what is in with me in this house, and he hath commanded all that he hath to my hand. And verse 9, there is none greater in this house than I. That's a bold statement for him to make, but it's actually true. He's not doing it prideful. He knows that the responsibilities that he have. Neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee. Now he tells her, hey, you're the only thing that's been kept back from me. Because apparently he's been told that, or he knows that would be cutting his neck. How then can I do this great wickedness? Yeah. Unfortunately, that's one sin that's common throughout history. Lust of the flesh. Beauty. How then can I do this great wickedness? It is a great wickedness because it has so many consequences to it. Pregnancies, abortion, venereal diseases, damaging trust between couples, and sin against God. Here's the last thing, sin against God. We sin against Christ now. And it came to pass, as she spoke to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her, to lie by her, or to be with her. Now, if I was in Joseph's shoes, I would say, I need to take some precautions. I'm not going into that house unless I'm sure there's another man in there with me. Because when you know a woman's after you, eventually she's going to get what she wants if she tries hard enough. Verse 11, and it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business. There were none of the men of the house there within. Whoa, Joseph, warning. Sirens going off. No men in there. It's going to be your word against hers. Unfortunately, he apparently didn't have enough time. 12. And she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. Well, the trap's been sprung, and now he's got caught. Verse 13, and it came to pass, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled forth, that she called unto the men of her house and spoke unto them, saying, See, he hath brought in a Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. Now she's got the proof, his robe. If she hadn't seen that, she wouldn't have been able to do the following. And she laid up his garments by her until his Lord came home. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, The Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us came in to mock me. And it came to pass, as I lifted my voice and cried, that he let his garment with me and fled. Now, up until this point in time, which we don't know how much time has elapsed, Joseph has been righteous, he's been true. Potiphar has been blessed because of him. Now, wouldn't that come into his mind and give some question? Because I'm sure that she's probably done this when he was home too. And he probably knows this is the habit of hers. Anyway, verse 19, and it came to pass when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spoke unto him, saying, After this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath was kindled. Now he's upset. He's upset because he probably knows his wife is lying. He's upset because now he's got to do something with Joseph, which means he's going to lose the favor of the Lord upon his house. He's got a lot to lose. But which one is he going to lose? Joseph or his wife? He's in a trap. Verse 20. And Joseph's master took him, put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in the prison. Here it is in verse 21 again. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all that the prisoners that were in that place, and whatsoever there did therein, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hands, because the Lord was with him. And that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. Potiphar has lost him, but the guard at the prison now experiences God's blessing upon Joseph and everything he does in this prison. God is moving Joseph into the position that he wants him to be in as we continue on in the next few chapters. But God was with Joseph, and God is with us too. Hopefully you can see that he is with us, and he's with some people. It ought to be clear by the life we live. A godly, righteous life. Doesn't mean we're not going to have problems like Joseph. It just means that we can see that God is with us, protecting us and moving us into position on where he wants us.